This is Jake Funk, Super Bowl champion running back for your LA Rams, and you're listening to the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast.
And welcome into the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 50. That's right, August 8th, and 50 episodes under my belt. Happy to be on here with you. I'm Bradley Stalder. You can follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. Today, I will be comparing my projections to PrizePicks lines and props. If you're unfamiliar with PrizePicks, make sure that you check out and go to PrizePicks.com. And it is a website where you can choose player props. Simply, you choose the over-under. And by choosing the over-under, you pick at least two, so parlay form. And for NFL futures, it'll pay off, of course, at the end of the year. So, this is more of an investment. And as I talked about in my quarterback projections versus PrizePicks, I'm going to be targeting a lot of unders. And the reason why I'm targeting unders for season-long props is there are lots of ways in which the prop can fail. A player can get injured. A player can play poorly. The team can underperform. There's a lot of ways in which things can go wrong. And so if my projections are very close to what PrizePicks is, I'm probably going to take the under, because there are, as I said, like if it's 50-50, then I want to take the edge of whatever else might possibly happen. And in fact, you can go for the next 10 hours and 56 minutes and get the Deebo Samuel receiving yards prop. It's currently 10% off, so instead of 950.5, it is 850.5. And let me pull up that's their special for today. So check it out. Deebo Samuel is now 850.5. And then comparing that to my projections, I know I'm doing running backs, but Deebo Samuel kind of like played part of a running back there. I have Deebo Samuel projected for over 1,400 receiving yards. 1,400 receiving yards. So I am definitely taking the over on 850.5. That's one of my highest, even with the 950.5. Like, I wanted to take some more action on that. So if you want to pair the Deebo Samuel prop with another one of the props that I mentioned during today's podcast, feel free to do so. And then, of course, use the promo code that's going to be posted here in the chat. So let me copy the code here for you as well, and I'll put that in the chat. Okay, but we're going to look at the board. We're not going to look at wide receivers today. We are going to look at running backs. And the first running back that I want to talk about is, here we go. So posted there in the code. That is my code for PrizePicks. So use that code, first time deposit, match up to $100. And there we go. The first running back I want to talk about is Naji Harris. And there are some fans in the stands who love Naji Harris. They are Naji Harris stands. They can't understand how people can go against Naji Harris. But let's look at some of the props that PrizePicks has on Naji Harris. 1,200.5 rushing yards and 9.5 rushing touchdowns. Now, for comparison, last year, Naji Harris had exactly 1,200 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. Naji Harris was only one of three running backs in the top 24 of fantasy points per game among running backs who played all 17 games. It's unlikely that he repeats that. And my projection for Naji Harris for rushing yards is exactly 1,000.8 or 1,008 rushing yards. So my projection is lower than the PrizePicks prop. And then I adjusted my amount. That's for 17 games, 1,008 over the course of 17 games. I adjusted that to 15 games. So took 2 games of a rate off and then compared that to the 1,200 prop line. And I am 26% lower for Najee Harris for rushing yards. So taking the under on Najee Harris for rushing yards is what I'm looking at. It's one of my biggest unders for rushing props. In fact, I'm looking here. I don't see any other ones in the above or more than a 15% under. I have Melvin Gordon as well listed and Tony Pollard as well listed in the double digits. But the strongest under that I would recommend is Najee Harris for rushing yards. Okay. As I said, he didn't even get there last year. He played all 17 games. We anticipate that the Steelers are going to be about the same offensively. Big Ben was bad last year, but reports out of camp are that Mitchell Trubisky is also bad. Kenny Pickett has not stepped forward. Mason Rudolph has a chance to be the number one quarterback. It's an outside chance, but Mitchell Trubisky most likely starts week 1. The reality is the offensive line hasn't gotten significantly better. Najee Harris is not an explosive player. He's a plotter. He averaged 3.9 yards per carry last season. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, he gets involved in the receiving game, blah, 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 blah. Yes, 74 receptions. But that was part games scheming by Big Ben. He just didn't want to get hit last year. So he's getting the ball out quickly, close to the line of scrimmage. And there was one game last year where in week 3, Najee Harris had 14 receptions, right? 14 receptions, 142 total yards. That's not what we're looking for. Okay. Yes, he did well to start the season, but then from weeks 12 on, there were 3 instances where he had single digit points. 3 instances. That's not good. It's just not good. So Najee Harris, I'm taking the under. Even with 307 rush attempts, he couldn't get over this prop last year. You'd have to expect either an increase in efficiency, which is possible, but how much efficiency are you going to expect Najee Harris to jump up? 4.1 yards per carry, right? There's already been a little bit of chatter about getting other running backs involved. But to be fair, what other running backs are going to be involved? It's not Anthony McFarland, right? It's not Benny Snell, the plotter himself. If there's a definition of plotter, it's Benny Snell. Look it up in the dictionary. But Najee Harris, I mean, things need to shift dramatically, and he needs to get lucky and play all 17 games. So I'm taking the under. The projections just don't meet it. The running back props, this is a pretty much slam dunk for me. Najee Harris under. And if you want to go another under, Najee Harris under 9.5 rushing touchdowns. Najee Harris had 10 total touchdowns last year. So under 9.5 rushing yards or rushing touchdowns. I think that's based on my model. I only have Najee Harris projected for between 5 and 6 rushing scores. It's a low rate. So, no, I'm not super optimistic. I only have Najee Harris projected for 259 rush attempts, which is like 17 a game. But this is where you can make your money, okay, is these the projection that Najee Harris is going to improve dramatically in efficiency when there's no reason to think so. Okay. All right. We're going to move on. My Mac told me that I'm running low on battery. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to identify a couple others that are my favorite under props and mostly having to do with rushing touchdowns. So Javonte Williams, I have projected between 5 and 6 touchdowns. Javonte Williams is at 7.5. Okay. Remember, he's still splitting with Melvin Gordon. And my under is 37% lower. Now, I don't know exactly how the numbers work out, but you want your props to be at least a 58, 59%, 60% chance to happen because it's in parlay form. As I mentioned in the quarterback podcast, take a listen to that one. I go into a little bit more detail on the math, but if you have two 60% possible outcomes and they're parlayed together, the chance that that both of them happen is 36%, right? So 36% times the expected value of the payout, it's 3x. So if you put in $10 and you win, you get $30, right? So it's actually, it's probably actually only 2x. So you pay back whatever. Expected value is only actually 2x. So you need to really have these be the most significant. You only want to target the most likely ones to hit. And the Javonte Williams touchdowns one, right? He is splitting with Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon is a career nose for the end zone type of guy. His touchdown rate is very high. Javonte Williams had 7 total touchdowns last year, and we do expect him to pick up the volume. And I project that Javonte Williams is going to lead the backfield, but how much? And that's been the question. I have Javonte Williams projected for 270 rush attempts. So, heck, even more than Naji Harris, but only 5.3, so between 5 and 6 touchdowns. And right now he needs to get 8 to hit the over. Even if he hits 7, it's not going to hit the over. You're going to need a full Javonte Williams takeover if that's what you're projecting. And I'm thinking not. Okay. All right. A few others I'm going to throw your way. Under 6 rushing touchdowns for Miles Sanders. He had 0 last year. I mean, even if he gets 5, that's serious touchdown regression in the positive way, but it's not going to affect. Miles Sanders has a 1.88 career rushing touchdown rate. Even if it goes up to the league average, which is between 3.5 and 4.5, he's not going to pay off, right? I have him projected for 4 rushing touchdowns this year. So even getting another one after that at 5, that's probably the best bet. And then one other is rushing touchdowns. Devin Singletary. The addition of James Cook. Zach Moss has played well in camp. Duke Johnson is still there. There are a lot. Josh Allen rushing touchdowns close to the goal line. That's what I'm concerned about for Devin Singletary. He has a 2.22 career rushing touchdown percent. And so I only have a projected for 4.1. Even if he gets 5, then I've won. So that's the biggest edge, and these are projected out of 15 games. Most running backs are playing 15 games, 14 games, 16 games. So I'm projecting on average that they're going to miss 2 games or not play for some reason, 2 games. And I think that that's a safe thing. All right. One final rushing touchdown prop that I am I'll throw 2 your way. One of them is Austin Eckler, under 8.5 rushing touchdowns. I have Eckler at 7.7. So close to 8, but 7.7 over the course of 17 games. Okay. So I don't think he'll get to the 9 touchdowns that he would need to get there. We saw him used a lot near the goal line, but he talked about in the offseason, the coaches have talked about in the offseason, they don't want him to run as much this season. And that was something that was different in previous years is Austin Eckler going to get the goal line work? And I think we're going to see a regression of that. I have him projected for 7.7. So hitting the 8 is fine, but getting 9, we would need another set of positive touchdown regression to get there. I don't see it happening. All right. So I mentioned I had two of them. One is Austin Eckler. The other target for touchdown regression, of course, is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, the over-under is 10.5 rushing touchdowns. Let me go to Mixon. Okay, 10.5 rushing touchdowns, and I'm going to take the under on Joe Mixon. I have him projected for 9.4, so between 9 and 10, and I just need him to get 10. But we've also seen Joe Mixon get hurt in previous years. The offensive line may be better, but we'll also see the Cincinnati Bengals passing more, running more plays, and we could see Joe Burrow being a little bit more mobile given his recovery from the devastating knee injury he suffered in 2020. So I think there are ways in which Joe Mixon can fail. My projections have him 20% under this prop, rushing touchdowns. So keep all of those in mind as you're making your choices for running backs. As I mentioned, this is going to be a shorter podcast just because my battery's running low, but also I need to leave for an appointment here soon. But I will be back, not on this site, but I am on the Polly's Podathon. And Shane Barrett is doing great work raising money for Alzheimer research. And I'm hopping on his podcast, the Podathon, for him. We're going to talk about ways in which to improve your rankings, and especially in the context of fantasy pros. So I was a 4-time top 10 weekly ranker last season. I won week 17 representing fantasy data. And so that's, something I'll be doing again this year is doing these rankings for fantasy pros and offering my insights. So I'm going to talk with Shane about ways in which everyone can improve their rankings by checking out that podcast. So today we hit on some PrizePicks futures really quickly. Use the promo code PR-TU. I think that's a 0 EUX4. I also have it posted here, and I'll put it in the show notes so you can take a look and use the promo code on PrizePicks so that you can win some NFL futures as well. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. And in the meantime, I'm Bradley. Good luck in the best ball streets.